All right, this is Suresh May, host of the Wealth Weekly Show. We live from Ed O'Keefe's Time Collapsing Academy in Chicago. And today on this episode, I actually wanted to do something different because I have all these brilliant people in the room.
Welcome to the Ed O'Keefe Show. Transform your mind, accelerate your business, energize your body, and inspire the world. Now here is your host, Ed O'Keefe.
Hello everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe and welcome to another episode of the Time Collapsing. Oops, no, it's not Time Collapsing, it's the Ed O'Keefe Show, behind the scenes of greatness. Oh my gosh, I've been promoting the book Time Collapsing so much. If you hadn't known, it's out. It's at timecollapsing.com. And we're giving it away free. We just ask you pay shipping and handling. But I'll tell you more about that in a second. Today is a special podcast with a good friend of mine named Suresh May. Suresh is one of my good friends, clients, business, entrepreneurial buddies. And he was at our last mastermind meeting here at the Time Collapsing Platinum Group. And he had asked me if he could do an interview for his own show. So it's kind of a unique interview. So it starts off where he asked me a few questions about the book launch, the book release, and what is new and unique about time collapsing. And then he segues into going around the room and asking every guy in the room, which there was about a dozen of us on that day. The next day there was around 30. And ask them the question of what was the biggest breakthrough that led them from going from zero to making multiple thousands of dollars a day or more in revenue. So anyhow, without further ado, check it out. Also, just a quick update and announcement. Our Time Collapsing Mega Conference is this October 11th through the 13th in Nashville, Tennessee. If you're on my list, if you're around, you're going to be seeing a lot about it. You can check it out at timecollapsingmegaconference.com or just click on one of the links below and be brought there. And so if you haven't gotten the book, Time Collapsing, The New Art of Speed, Money, Power, and Meaning, please check that out. And without further ado, I think I've talked way too long. Enjoy.
I said, man, instead of just interviewing Ed and talking about his story,
Boring.
I actually masterminded with some of the guys here, and I asked them, hey, what do you think will be one big question that we could ask everyone helping startup entrepreneurs who are probably doing between 5 to maybe 10K a month, who want to get to, $50,000 per month and beyond. But before we get into that question, Ed, tell me more about the Time Collapsing Academy and just what it stands for, man.
Well, here's the reality, right? So if you everybody ask, it's very simple. And while Ian's trying to touch himself, we should probably just keep this as appropriate as possible for a few minutes. If you ask a simple question, which is like, can you think about where you want to be in like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or what you ideally would like in your life if you had no limitations? Everybody would say, well, yeah, of course, I'd want it. And then the follow-up question on that is kind of like, well, why aren't you already there? And so usually a large percent of our population will deem it to like genetics, geographic location, education, indoctrination, whatever it might be, but those are just fallacies they tell themselves or histories they tell themselves, where time collapsing is a process that I discovered and created based on experiencing what wasn't time collapsing. And can I share for a quick second?
Absolutely.
So I don't think I really share with you guys, but like when I was in college, I got my degree in nursing. I went out to be an entrepreneur, and I kind of did what most people do, which is like get addicted to the self-help books, the how to make money books, how to be positive, how to be successful. Here's the track, do these 5 things, you're gonna be famous. And a lot of those things are like, well, set goals, say affirmations, visualize, and you're going to hit your goals. Well, here I am 20 years later, and I swear to God, first of all, I was broke for the next 4.5, 5 years, talking to myself, visualizing things that didn't happen,
right,
and setting goals that I never reached, right? And so one thing that I figured out was like, okay, well, that's not enough. You need more than that.
Yeah.
And so I figured out a lot of those processes. But one thing I will say is too, is that, I don't know about you guys, but like most goals I've ever written out, I've never hit. Most I have never hit. And so, in a big chapter in time collapsing is what I call this thing called directional pull and the tectonic shift. And tectonic shift is this concept of like, the tsunami happens, everyone sees the tsunami, and usually it's too late. And what happens in the ocean underground is this shift occurs, and all the work is done, no one sees it. And so the process that I teach in time collapsing is this process of pretty much guaranteeing you're going to hit the directional pull that you want in your life. And and I believe, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys haven't read the book yet, but I believe it's one of the only books that have ever been written that try and pull the positive thinking, success-oriented 101 goals with what actually works to go from 0 to 7 figures, combined with the metaphysical, spiritual side, and how do you integrate all that into one thing? So it's either going to be really good or it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
So, might as well take a shot at it.
How long you been working on the book?
Well, I started about 2.5 years ago, and I started actually talking about like this grind process, like embracing the grind, and about how the grind is actually not this thing that, if you look in the dictionary, the grind is something that, is to pummel something into ashes or down to pieces and whatever. But if you mention the word grind to high performers, it's a different language that is instantly understood by high achievers, describing the process at which they go from being ordinary to extraordinary, and they do that. So I started down that angle and that approach, and it started evolving into this concept of someone was like challenging me, like, well, what is this even about? What is this about? And I was like, what do you mean it's about? It's about time collapsing. And then that's where it came. Like I was like, this is what it's going to be about. And so then it took a right turn, and then I had to like backfill a lot of chapters that I had originally not planned on writing.
Yeah.
And I think it did its right justice. Like as my wife said this morning, before I left the house, like she was like, well, you wrote the amount that was supposed to be written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I think since I've known you for a little over a year, since we met at BGS in Orlando, and you've been talking about the time collapsing book, one of the most impactful parts of the book has been leapfrogging that you've taught me.
Yeah.
And you got a couple of amazing stories that you share about leapfrogging. So can you talk about what that is and give that example? I like the one about the guy who I think went to the UK and got with the lawyer, brought him to the hotel.
Well, yeah, okay. So that's leapfrogging. So leapfrogging is the concept, obviously, some of you have heard this before, but like of how we go, where most people think they got to work their way through the ranks.
Yeah.
Time collapsers don't think that. Time collapsers are asking themselves, how do I get to the top as quickly as humanly possible with the least amount of resistance and the most amount of efficiency? And if you start looking at that process, like, so real quickly, backing up, all the competition is working their way up through the ranks. Everyone's doing the step ladder to success. So they're all there. So why not step back and ask yourself a totally different question of how do I go to the top? Because that's where the crowd is smaller at the top.
Right.
All the resources you need are at the top, and all the people you want to meet are at the top, right? So then you go like, well, what do I need to know in order to leapfrog? It usually comes down to a couple things. One is, do you have a certain amount of specialized knowledge? Do you have the relationships to bring that knowledge to you? Or you can hire? Do you have the mentor that can get you there? Do you have the strategic, like in the book we talk about 2, 5, 20, 100, 1,000. So I'll go backwards because I always start from the 2. 1,000 true fans who will help grow your brand, your business. I use the example of Peter Thiel I just shared with you guys here, which is when PayPal started, they targeted 20,000 people. 1,000 strategic, true fans, 100 potentially strategic partners, 5 guys that, or girls, I guess, that you'd be willing to be naked in the shower with. And, I go back to like college because you're naked in the shower when you're with your team, like in sports. I know it's kind of weird, but my point is that the transparency in the 2 models, right? So how are you going to get to those people? So in the book, we talk about leapfrogging in relationships.
Yeah.
And I tell a very specific story about an international investor who figured out when he'd fly into countries that to get into the wealthiest of people, that a good lawyer could be potentially worth nothing as far as his legal abilities, but his Rolodex could be worth millions. And this person would go into these locations and want to get access to all the deals, because all the deals are made in the circles, right?
Right.
That's where all the specialized, the deals are at. And so he would go and start identifying law firms that represented the wealthiest people, and he'd position himself in such a way. And then when he'd go there, and there's way more to the story, but here's what I want to get to, because I know we're short on time, is he would be able to hire the law firm for $2,000 to $5,000, but within a matter of days, he was getting invited to all the cocktail parties of all the wealthiest people. And so that is a way of leapfrogging. There's one more, since we're online too, and Com Mirza, we should tag him on this too, is like, so I used one of Com's stories of how he got his billionaire mentor. And so he spent, I think, a year or more. He could comment on it too, but I used one of his Facebook posts, went a little more depth on the story of how he spent a full year creating value for the 5 people around the billionaire and just creating value for him. Didn't ask for anything, just created value. And then what happened was when he finally met the guy who he wanted to get more access to, the guy was approaching him. And we talk about like time collapsers never chase, we always attract.
Yeah.
And my belief is that with the social economy, like with LinkedIn, with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram, I mean, all of us literally could go hammer away at people's like things, asking for stuff, but you're not going to get anything. They may give you something to go away, but you're never going to build a relationship. So on the same thing, you could follow their threads, not as a stalker, but see what they're interested in and see if you can solve their problems for them. And I'm a believer that you should work for free or give until it hurts instead of asking. Because I think it'll come to you, and then when that time comes, you have to figure out where you're at, and you might still just keep doing what you're doing, you know? Yeah,
I did that without knowing that. That's how I got Mike Koenigs to mentor me. He was my first mentor, which kind of allowed me to break through. Just offering value to him first without asking for anything.
Nice. I
Yeah,
love it.
sweet. Man, so now what I want to do, just leverage all of these amazing people in the room. Let's go around the room. If you guys could, one, hold the mic close to your face so we can get the audio, because it's very important. Say your name, what you're working on, and our one big question, where are we? Is what is the one thing that helped you go from $5K a month to $50,000 a month plus in your business?
You might need to meditate on that for a minute. Why don't you go first, and I'll come back to me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Charles Livingston, and I own a supplement company. And the biggest thing for us, in order to grow and scale a company, is to have one core offer, and you work and you work and you work on that offer until it converts. And then once it converts, you work on getting your average cart value up. Once you get that done, then the next level is just throwing a bunch of traffic at it. And then that's what allowed us to just scale. We worked and we worked and we worked on this offer and cultivated it over, honestly, we cultivated this offer over years. And finally, we just hit that tipping point where it was just enough to where we were making money on the traffic on the front end. And then from there, we just started raising the average cart value, which is adding upsells and downsells into your funnel. And, at the end, we were able to just buy as much traffic as we could. So that was kind of our biggest thing.
Let me ask you this, Charles. With you testing the offer and getting to the point where you were breaking even on traffic on the front end, what would you say were some like the most impactful things that you changed?
Say that one more time.
When you were testing your offer, trying to get it to break even for your traffic spend on the front end, what would you say were some of the most impactful things that you were testing or changing?
Some of the most impactful things. On the front end, I would say, definitely the copy. Yeah. I mean, you just test and test your copy for sure. And then, make sure we use a lot of authority. I'm a doctor. We just played that one a lot.
Yeah.
whatever you have. If you're not a doctor, find a doctor, or use third-party research endorsements.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'm playing on the. I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's fine. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, cool.
So, I'm going to be a little less.
Say your name and your business.
Jared Croslow, superhuman.io.
Awesome.
So I would say from I was trying to think back to when I was making $5,000 a month. I think actually it was kind of like a shift in beliefs in the possibilities. For me, it was more of a mental thing than the technical side of things or the marketing side of things. It was just believing that it was possible to make that much. Transitioning from what I've found in business is every time I've reached a new amount of money that I've made in a month or in a year, that's kind of stretched my mind. It's never returned back to its original shape. So, if you're at that place now where you're making 5 or 10 grand, every time you make a little bit more, your mind's going to stretch, and it's never going to return to that previous shape. And that level of success or level of income will always be easy to attain compared to previous. So for me, it was just having the belief that it's possible. And when you're not at that place, you have to borrow other people's beliefs. So the best thing you can do is, if you're in a type of business, is get around other people that are in the same type of market, that have success that's better than yours, higher than yours, that you can leverage their success as part of your beliefs temporarily till you can get to that point. Nice. That's why I was very lucky to meet Ed. Ed had a supplement company that's much more successful than mine, and I leveraged his beliefs in his offers working well, and that helped me get to where I was able to do the big numbers every month.
Nice. That's awesome. My man, Ian.
So I'll say less tactical stuff, since scaling out, like testing, is pretty simple to understand. Basically what Jared said, all change happens in 3 steps. You change your perception of what's possible, change your thoughts, change your habits, ultimately change your habit of thinking. So one of the biggest things is just hanging out with people that are so much more successful than you that 5K a month sounds childish. Yeah. Right, like where it just sounds like a joke. Because there's a point where you're like, oh my God, if I could make 5K a month, I'd just have a perfect life. I would love everything. And now you're like, 5K a month? How badly would I be doing if that was what was happening? Yeah. And if you hang out with people doing way more, it happens, like the shift in your brain happens so much faster than if you hang around with a bunch of drug addicts, you're probably a drug addict. You hang around with losers, you're probably a loser. If you hang around with a bunch of people who, if everybody around you makes $1 million a year and you make 100 grand a year, or we'll say 60 grand a year, you're suddenly going to start making 500, $1 million a year. It's just going to happen. Yeah. It's like a magnetic pull. Yeah. And then the other thing for leapfrogging or leap kangarooing, as I like to call it, since they can jump further than frogs, change your book. Change it. Go through the whole thing. You've got to identify with the Australian market. I'm not Australian, by the way, for this video. But the one thing is figure out what can you do that nobody else can do. Like, what's the one thing that nobody else can replicate? So to what Ed said about having people chase you instead of going after people is, like, for me, it's doing stupid things like drinking toilet water or making up characters like Lai Topaz. But the weird thing that happens from that is you get these people who are so far beyond where you're at that reach out to you and then want to talk to you just because of something like that. Yeah. So I'm not saying everybody do that, but whatever it is, you've got something that person is shit at, or that you can help them with, or just some way to attract them towards you so that they're chasing, as opposed to trying to be like, hey, I've heard you. Don't say the words pick your brain either. That's a big tip. Nobody ever wants to have their brain picked. It's not a nose. Nobody's ever going, oh yes, I would love to have you pick my brain. Let's go get a coffee for free because my time is not valuable at all. Right. Thank you. So that's it.
I'm to piggyback off that one, with you and Jared talking about the mindset thing, just hanging out with you guys and Ed and Tony and Vinny, it's like some of the things that you hear in conversations, right? Because I'm not even close to $1 million a month yet, but you hear people say that shit just kind of like, it's no money. And you start to replicate those thoughts and those ideas, and naturally you pick up those patterns, man. So thanks for sharing it.
Okay, I'm Stefan. I have a supplement company too. I think for me, it kind of goes back to the one thing and narrowing your focus. Because when I first the first money I ever made online was as a copywriter, and I woke up with some money in my PayPal account. And then people would ask, like, can you do SEO? And I'd be like, oh, okay. And I'd go, how the fuck do you do SEO? And then I'd start doing SEO. Do you do websites? Yeah. Okay. How the fuck do you build a website? And that's where I got to like, $5,000, $10,000 a month was doing that. So I went from like one thing to multiple things, but then realizing what got you from point A to point B might not get you to the next step. So for me, it was actually getting rid of all that other crap I'd been doing and going back to being a copywriter. And that's when I first made $50,000 a month, was doing that. And then, ended up, even now I have some health offer supplements, but it's really copy heavy, but it's still focusing on a few core things that you're really good at. And, I think a narrower focus is better generally than trying to be too broad or trying to be too many things. To get to that next level, it might be good to get you to, 5K, but to keep going after that, I guess.
So let me ask you this, because that's a great point. And it's a trap though, right? Because when you're starting out, and let's say if you cash strap, it's easy to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do copywriting, SEO, so I can get the money. What would you say to somebody to keep them out of that trap and to just help them like anchor the understanding the power of the focusing on the one thing?
Well, I mean, you definitely have to pay the bills and everything, and I get that. But I would just really look at, what do you have to do to pay the bills and be sustainable and whatever. And maybe it's some things that you don't like doing. But then out of all those things, just what is that one thing that you're like really good at and that you can crush it with? And all of your spare time, if you can outsource, if you can hire somebody to handle a bunch of the mundane stuff, great. And then put all of your time into that one thing that you're really good at. Yes.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm Richard Seppel, founder of the Siphon Cloud. And actually, you guys kind of took what I was going to say, focus and tactics and some other things. But so I kind of took it back to where when I was just started out and I had this vision. And I think early entrepreneurs who find themselves at that 5 to 10,000, it's easy to compare yourself to everybody that you read about, and you start to feel like, well, shit, why am I not there? What am I doing wrong? So I think, the philosophy of never giving up and focusing on what your really goal is and understand that it's not going to happen overnight, number one. And number two is also always be aware of what your story is and why. What is your why? And why are you doing this? What is your motivation that gets you up every day? And I think sometimes people lose sight of what their why is because they see all the distractions. They see all the super conferences and meetings and everything else, and they fall for the riffraff of, if you do this, you're going to make $1 million. But, staying focused and understanding your story and why you wanted to be an entrepreneur to begin with, I think is going to be a key.
That's powerful. Nice.
Ethan Cap, own a financial publishing company and a supplement company that I just started.
Yeah.
That's right.
Woohoo!
For me, two things. One, I think people underestimate the power of being an expert in a niche. I think in some cases that can be worth millions of dollars to you, that people look at you as authority and expert in a niche. And the second is going to the higher end of that niche and charging higher prices. And so I have good friends, car dealers are their main focus. And they were marketing to everybody, and then they went to the higher end of the niche and charged $5,000 a month for a retainer, plus they buy their media, right? And so they have a 50% margin in their business. And it all changed when they, realized that they had an expert status in the niche, and they were willing to charge a higher price. And so their average long-term customer values is 24 months, right? So they may only get 4 or 5 guys in a month, but they know that guy's staying until month 24, yeah. Right? So I think those two things, just if you had a higher ticket product that was 10 or 15 grand that you could sell as a high ticket over a webinar or a sales guy, that one thing alone can take you from 5 to 10 to 25 to 50.
Nice. Real quick, because the Wealth Weekly Show, we help a lot of startup entrepreneurs. So I get this question a lot. A lot of people have mental blocks on charging more. So what would you say to somebody who's stuck thinking, hey, I'm charging a low price for my service. This is kind of like what I think is available to me. I'm afraid to charge higher prices. What would you say to them?
What would I say to someone who's afraid to charge a higher price?
Yeah, to sell it to them. Let them know that they can do it.
Well, I think part of it is changing your belief. For me, it's just setting a deadline and going and doing it.
Okay.
So it's like, or hire a sales guy to do it, or hire somebody who beats you up to to change your mind process. If it's, hey, I'm just going to go and test a webinar and sell a $5,000 package, I'm just going to flat out go and do it. Because what happens if you sell one, then you don't have to change your belief system anymore, right?
Yeah, that's huge. Your ball density.
I was going to say just one thing on that, just real quick, is I was going to say, like, you can hold it. Like, it's just, I think most people who struggle with not charging enough haven't built the structure to make it easy to ask for the money. So if you're afraid to look someone in the eye and say, "Oh, I'm $5,000," well, create a webinar that charges $5,000. And then use direct response marketing to help soften the ground, so you're only dealing with people that are already in at $5,000.
Yeah, that's huge.
How you doing? Robbie, Premium Health Supplies, got some supplement companies. These guys touch base on a lot of core important things, split testing, making sure that the headlines and the copy. But I would say the number one thing is relationships, making sure that you're attending all of the summits, all of the conventions. It's a lot different to be somebody face-to-face than just a name behind a Skype or an email. When you actually cultivate these relationships, they will last a very long time. Most of the networks that I have now have been running my offers since day one, 3 years ago. And it's just because we've developed a really strong relationship. You know what I mean? They trust me, I trust them, you know what I mean? And that's probably been one of the key factors to take our company from $5,000 a month to more.
No, I like that, man, because a lot of people, I feel like they get really lazy with trying to meet people because how we have so much access on the internet. And they don't go and meet people in person. They try to send Facebook messages and emails and tweets. But it's like, man, you're not going to make deep, meaningful connections like that. Yeah.
No,
not with people who value their time and they're like power players in the industry.
People want to know who they're working with.
Exactly.
100%.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, cool, man. So that's Ed.
Do I get the answer?
Yeah, you do. We skipped you, right?
Skipping me. That's good. Okay, so I have two answers. One is what I loved about, like, I think, all these, I agree with them. What I used to do a lot of, and we did an exercise in this within the time collapsing masterclass called like the future you, where it's like when you start going out and be like, won't it be great when, like I would throw a lot of like, won't it be great when I'm charging or making $100,000 a month? Won't it be great when I'm making $500,000 a month? Won't it be great when, and then like, yeah, and then start talking through like, this is what my life looks like. It's awesome. I'm in great, like if you're not in great shape, you want to be in great shape, get it present moment, like, man, I'm working out, I'm feeling awesome, I'm getting this stuff. Same thing happens with money. So that's a future pacing kind of system. Because then when you start looking at that, you look at like, okay, well, who are the people I'm around? Ian, was it you that saying like, if you hang out with drug addicts, you're going to be a drug addict. If you hang out with badasses, you're going to quickly realize, if you hang out with high performers, you're going to quickly realize, do I belong in this group? And if not, where's the contrast that I have to either become? Or just go hang out with the drug addicts. We shouldn't make fun of drug addicts. They could be high performers too. So it's okay.
Touche.
And that's one. It's like if you want to be around, if you want to feel better about yourself, go hang out with people who are constantly complaining, crabby, and miserable, or go hang out with people who are happy. Go hang out with people who are happy. Like in the gym, like the number one rule is show up to the gym. Just get in there. Because like, unless you want to go walk around at like little like things where they do all this stuff and don't really work out, you're going to work out. That's one. Number two is niche. Like niche yourself. Find a niche. And I like what Ethan said about like, if you can find a premium niche, and then if you can find a premium niche that has a growth rate curve, and it's okay to go learn as much as you freaking can, as fast as you can, and in a matter of 2 to 3 months, you could literally know more than 95% of the population almost about any topic. There's podcasts, there's YouTube, there's everything that's out there. Like niche, and be so freaking good. The problem that most internet marketers or contractors or consultants or entrepreneurs who are like, I'm only making X dollar a month and blah, 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 is they're not good. If they were really good, people would be begging them to work with them and pay them money. It's in a lot of these guys who are like, these agencies are always checking out, trying to get new clients. Why are you always chasing new clients? Because if you were good, it should be so easy that clients should be lining up at your door. And so then the question becomes, what do you want to be good at? And the reality is that the ability to sell something and make people feel awesome are two of the best skills that you could possibly learn. And how you do that, whether it's video, whether it's sales letters, whether it's in whatever. I mean, anyone can get good at that, even if you don't consider yourself salespeople. So niche, and follow all their advice.
Yeah, that's great, man. So if anybody want to learn about the Time Collapsing Academy or get in touch with you, how can we get in touch with you?
Well, timecollapsing.com, and then I think we have the website, Time Collapsing Academy. Ed O'Keefe Show is my podcast, but Wealth Weekly, download everything, man, because this is going on my Facebook feed too, right? Because you're tagging me. So where are they going to find you? We got to pitch you too.
Oh, yeah, of course, wealthweekly.com. So this is my Facebook free, all of my friends, what's happening. We got all of these players in here. Wealthweekly.com.
And tomorrow we should do like part 2.
Let's
You're
do
going
it.
to have like 30 people in here tomorrow.
I'll be here until Wednesday, so we should do part
Yeah, we should. I think you should buy everybody drinks tomorrow and get this thing rolling.
Perfect.
And we got Lai Topaz tomorrow.
Lai Topaz. Yeah, we got to get Lai Topaz up here. I actually really like that. You know, I was wondering, it made me ask a question, think of a question earlier when you said you really like Tony Robbins, which you kind of came up with like the spoof name. I wondered, do you like Ty Lopez or not? I wasn't sure. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
I have friends that if I meet him and he's cool about the fact that I made fun of him, then he proves he's not a shitty person. Chances are he's a pretty shitty person.
All right, let's move on.
All right, cool, man. That's it. That's it for the Wealth Weekly Show.
Fresh, man.
Thank y'all, everybody.
All right.
Cool, that's it, man. Thanks a lot. My man.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode as well as all the other podcast episodes by heading on over to edokeefeshow.com. If you would, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a rating and review. Rating and reviews truly are the best way for you to show your appreciation for the show because they help more people find out about the podcast and decide if this is the one for them. So until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and inspire the world.
Hey everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe, and thanks for watching that video.
Hi.
We're sitting here at Target. My team needed a quick video to say thank you and invite you to our mega conference, which there should be a link right above me or to the side of me or over here, or subscribe. I don't know, whatever else we put up there. If you haven't gotten the free book yet, Time Collapsing. Keeg, stop it.
This is the
Please do that now. So check it out. You can be busy. You can have a family. You can be asked to do crazy things and be successful on your own terms, like we're doing it here at Time Collapsing Academy, at Time Collapsing, and then how we do it with our supplement businesses and our mentoring programs. So be yourself, be awesome, and I'll see you at hopefully a live event because that's where all the beauty and magic happens. That's it. Peace.